Death Note Podcast. Death Note Podcast. Death Note Podcast. Hurd Ya Saw. Also with siblings.
So yeah, normally with these things I actually start with a rolling start, so I was hoping to start it while you guys were in mid-conversation talking about something and we kind of let it go. Welcome back to Hurd Ya Saw. I'm joined this week, this is a special edition, this is the sibling-cast.
Hey.
We got 3 herds where you had less before. I'm joined today by Zoe.
Hello.
And Maddy.
Hi.
And we have just watched the Netflix Death Note movie. So as always with Hurd Ya Saw, we'll be beginning with our one-line hot takes. You get one line to just sum up everything you feel right now, and then we're going to talk about it more and we'll do some decompression at the end. So I'm going to begin with Zoe.
Oh no.
Your one-line hot take of the Death Note Netflix movie, please.
So one line as in like...
Just like one-line phrase. It doesn't have to say, it's
yeah,
like, what is in your heart right now?
I think problematic, choices, and fake blood.
Oh, Maddy, your one-line hot take?
I kind of really liked it, even though I think it doesn't actually make much sense, and there's one gaping flaw.
Right, okay, and my one-line hot take, I will go with, Death Note has been adapted into a lot of different forms anyway, and I think they did enough to differentiate this from the original that
Very
it was
much
worth
agreed, yeah.
doing.
Yes.
So, for those of you, dear listener, who may be familiar with the Death Note franchise, you probably think you know the plot, but Maddy, I would like to entreat upon you. Can you please give us the premise of the movie? This movie that we just watched.
Okay.
Yeah.
A bright student called Light Turner finds a mysterious notebook dropped from the sky and discovers that if you write a person's name in it, that person will die. As the Netflix summary said, this attracts the attention of a detective, a demon, and a girl in his class.
Dun dun dun!
Shenanigans ensue.
Oh yes.
Yes.
So I think it's fair to say that as a family, we're pretty familiar with Death Note.
We're very fond of
Yeah,
Yes.
very fun.
Yeah.
Big fans.
Yeah.
I suppose we should begin with the differences. Who would like to lead off with their thoughts on the adaptation process and how this changed it?
I think there were 2 main differences stand out. The first one was one that was mentioned in a leaked script years and years ago, and I hated it at the time, but actually I think it kind of worked okay here, in that Light's mother had been killed by a criminal, and that gave him more of an impetus to use the Death Note.
Indeed.
I thought when I first heard this idea, I thought that was going to be terrible because it would sort of make him sympathetic and human, and oh no, maybe Kira's okay, maybe what he's doing is all right. But actually, I think it was just it gave him another reason to move pretty quickly, but ultimately that was a terrible choice, So that was one difference that stood out, but actually didn't make as much sense as I thought. The other difference, I guess, is that in the original manga and anime, Light's girlfriend Misa kind of rocks up of her own accord with her own Death Note.
She figures out who he is as well.
Yeah,
by
and Light
herself.
doesn't really want her around, and she's completely obsessed with him, and he's only keeping her around because she'll cause more problems if she's not there. Whereas in this, Light and Mia meet immediately, and Light chooses to bring her in on the secret very early, and then they're basically like a power couple of doom the whole way through.
Sort of a Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, a Bonnie and Clyde thing.
Murder, Bonnie and Clyde.
Which is a dynamic that I really enjoy watching in fiction, so I like that. And then Mia is a very different character from Misa, and is ultimately a lot more ruthless than Light is, which is completely the reverse, I think.
She has none of the hero worship either. It's a very different take.
It's very different. And other differences, I think there are various changes made to the rules of the Death Note,
so you had some objections to this. I recall you saying in our brief break, you were like, I'm not sure about this, not sure, because there seemed to be some moments in the movie where they kind of broke their own rules. So we'll try and avoid spoilers where possible.
Well, I've just kind of vaguely spoiled a bit of it.
Well, if we put a disclaimer.
Yeah. So potential spoilers, but I think there's a misdirection.
Yes.
Where you think that, you know...
They have broken... Well, not broken a rule, but it's like, that seems out of character and
Yes,
I don't
for
like
what
it.
occurred.
Yeah, but then actually it works. There are some misdirections and they work well.
Misdirections in a Death Note thing. Who would have thought?
Yes.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. But there are genuine changes from the original in terms of rules, which I'm ambivalent on. And there's one where, I think there's one moment they break their own rules. Is that what you're talking about?
I think, there was also a lot of things that didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in the anime, Misa actually has her own Death Note, firstly.
And her own Death God.
And obviously her own Shinigami. English. And they both touch each other's notebook and meet each other's...
Light and Misa.
Yeah. Whereas it had this weird rule that only the owner of the book could see their Death God. And it just came to sort of all this stuff where Ryuk would be talking and Mia would be like, huh? And he'd be like, I'm just talking to Ryuk. And it's just like, I don't know if they did that for sort of comedy.
I think they put that in because they wanted Light to have to show Mia killing someone on a live crime scene. They wanted him to have to prove it that way.
Like,
if she'd seen Ryuk,
she'd be like, oh, there's something going on
there's
here.
There's definitely something going on here.
Who's this 8-foot-tall Willem Dafoe?
I think they could still have made it work. And actually with the way that they did Mia's character, I could see her being like, yeah, okay, so you have an 8-foot-tall Willem Dafoe, but like...
What does that mean?
Yeah, go on, prove it. And then he'd be like, okay, let me find you a live crime scene. It's going to be amazing. But and the rest of the time it's just kind of clunky.
Yeah, the thing, what I was going to go on to say was that it then seems weird that she is then able to write in the Death Note.
Yeah, you would think that the
power,
power
but not be able to.
Yes.
They could have even done it that once you write in it, you can see Ryuk.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, that's little cameo,
which could have led more into her.
And actually, she could have then been like, "Oh, let me try," and then seen Ryuk, and then that would have taken out the vaguely awkward.
Or maybe what could have been interesting is that you had sequences in them. They have a montage where they're going on like a yay murder and sex.
It's the sexiest murder.
Sex murder party. Where they're like eating popcorn while watching the news and then murdering people in their bed, and I'm like, this is oddly wholesome.
Whilst having sex.
Whilst having sex.
To be honest, that's everything I want from like a Kira relationship.
Where they're just like, snacks. Oh, death.
Yeah.
Yay, the news. But what I think would have been a cool thing is if they had it, because in that montage you had moments where you saw Mia writing in the note, because they were like both doing it, and it was like they were both complicit in like that activity. If you'd had it revealed that she could then see Ryuk but didn't let on,
that would have been neat.
That would have been cool, because then she would have known more about what was going on, and maybe she and Ryuk were like conspiring for her to get the book.
They could have filmed it as like, maybe they were in the middle of sort of intercourse, and she's like looking over Light's shoulder.
Oh my god, that would have been so
and making eye contact.
That would have been it was sort of made clear that Mia was getting off on it. Like she obviously found it really sexy, whereas I'm not sure Light. So I think he was more like, yeah, your girl likes me.
And also, I'm doing a good thing for the world. Yeah.
Moving on from there, I was going to say that Light as a character, very, very, very different from manga and anime. Like, what was the feeling of the room on this?
Well,
Light?
I was about to say, can we please talk about Ryuk's introduction scene when?
Like,
I don't think. Hey, anime Light lets out a massive scream and falls off the chair.
That was overboard. So,
I would probably scream and curl up in a ball if Ryuk appeared in my room.
And also destroyed the room.
He was
a lot more active, Ryuk.
There was a lot of casual property destruction and things being swept off tables.
Yeah. But
decapitation and things being swept off tables. Those were hallmarks of this.
But Ryuk, Light rather, as a character. What did we make? Because one of the things that we've spoken about at great length as a family is Light is a complete fucking sociopath.
He's
in
not
the original.
a good person.
He's not. He starts
and
off.
that was why I was worried about his mother was killed by criminals, so he's not really a bad person. No, he's a bad person.
It's like he starts off with noble intentions, but we were talking about.
He very quickly jumps off.
There's some moral event horizons that he passes specifically.
But he's also there to make you question yourself.
Yeah, like if you were given absolute power in this way.
What would you do?
Yeah, what would you do?
like the original. What I like about the original Light is it's like you're such a horrible person. You're also so resourceful. It's kind of amazing watching you get away with this stuff at the same time. I really want to kick you in the shins.
That's one thing.
And I don't feel like this Light had that.
He had the without going to spoilers, the final sequence.
Oh yeah, that was
where you have like the big
yeah.
and this is how I did it.
Yeah.
That was very of
And
that
actually,
Light.
I think that has really left me. I think that was a real uptick. I'm like, oh, that ended on a good note. I really like that.
Yeah.
But I think that.
It was less a battle of wits.
Yeah, I think it's more like because of a key event that happens to Elle halfway through, he's kind of running on fear and anger too.
Lack of sleep, probably.
Fear, anger, and lack of sleep. And I think Light is also running on fear, anger, and lack of sleep. So they both spend, rather than the battle of the wits and the I know, you know thing, they're both spending a lot of time just sort of running about and shouting at each other.
I mean, I thought the actor who played Elle was really good, but I was disappointed in how he was written. I thought they dumbed him down. I felt a lot, the way I describe all the characters, apart from Mia, who was obviously completely different to me, so was, I felt they were all very much diluted.
Like they were sort of smoothed out versions of the original.
You know, like, in the anime, both Light and Elle's intentions are sort of very, very clear. And, I felt in Light's character in this, there was certainly an element of inconsistency. So he'd have a moment where he was really, really badass, and he's like, and then he'd have moments where he was such a fucking pussy. And I was like, mate.
I think they should have committed. They could have pushed him to being a little more sociopathic. I think I would have personally enjoyed it more if he'd been like, Mia's like, I did this thing. He's like, my God, that's wrong, but kind of awesome. But wrong, no, you know. Like, whereas it's just like, no, it's wrong. And I'm like, is it?
Well, actually,
I would have liked to see a bit more. I think they could have pushed him to being...
Thinking about it, actually, I was just realised that the actual battle of wits in this movie is less between Elle and Light and more between Mia and Light,
which is cool.
It's again an interesting and different take of like saying, because it sort of takes the idea of like, oh yeah, this power is corrosive in a sense, like, giving people all that power is going to result in bad stuff happening, no matter how noble their intentions are. And Light in this version probably has the most noble of intentions out of any Light.
He does seem to have pretty noble intentions.
Yeah, he
doesn't. It's Mia helps him come up with the whole being a god thing. Yeah, and you can kind of see there's more of the whole. No, I need to be a god because I need to help. He's not, like, the other Lights are generally not good people.
No.
Like, Manga Light is like, and then I'll start killing people who are just kind of drains on society and lazy, but that will come later.
Yes.
This Light at least sticks to people who've actually done terrible things.
And he has, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a huge difference, which I think sums it up, is Light doesn't choose to write in the Death Note. He's told by Ryuk to do it.
True.
There was no...
Because
I don't know though. It's like, oh, I don't have a pen. Oh, you have a pen. Okay, I guess I'll do it then. And he did not need to add that decapitation.
Well, if I recall, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it in the original that Ryuk doesn't actually show up until after Light has already used
and he shows up and goes, oh, Light, you've killed more people than anyone I've sort of come across.
In the original, Light finds the live crime scene and the hostage on his own.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my God, shit, I just killed someone. And then
there's the sort of rape scene, isn't there?
Only in the anime. In the manga, they're just sexually harassing, like just catcalling her, so it's even worse.
And he hits him with a truck, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he does actually acknowledge that the guy probably didn't actually deserve to get hit by a truck just for catcalling. I mean, the guy is not a nice guy, and in the anime, it's basically he's trying to rape this girl, and which is I think they should have kept it as just catcalling because that makes
it shows more of like how Light
and then basically Light is just like, oh my God, I killed 2 people. Oh my God, no, I can't have made a mistake. They're bad people. Yes, I shall reframe reality and make myself a god. And then Ryuk's like, oh, this is interesting. Whereas Ryuk is a lot more of a sort of demonic, tempting figure.
Yeah.
Although again, I did feel like I was again, in that leaked script, I think they were like, in the Death Note had an evil mind power that corrupted you, where it's like, no, Light just made some stupid decisions in this. So I thought that was good. I was going to say that I was saying when we were watching it, I think it suffers Death Note, when Death Note is done well, there are a lot of rules, as Light points out here. There are many rules, and certainly the manga really capitalizes on those and is like, okay, let me see what I can do if I use this rule and this rule, and you've done that, and
there's a period of trial and error where he's figuring out exactly the limitations of the
anime struggles to adapt this, and they were a whole series, and I think this struggled being only a 1 hour 40-minute movie. I think they were like, we don't have time for this, and I think that's a shame. Although they kind of, about halfway through, I was like, yeah, they've not tried at all, and then I was like, oh no, they are trying. They are kind of trying, so that's cool, and they did do some of it. And then some of the rules that they added, I was just like, I'm not sure about that, really. I'm just not sure. And as I said,
which stuff specifically, like the page burning thing.
The page burning thing, I'm just like, that seems weirdly unnecessary for a notebook belonging to a god of death. Why would you have the chance to take one of them back?
Only being one name.
Yeah, it just seems a bit weird and weirdly added in.
You should probably explain what it is.
Yeah.
So in this version, there's a rule in the notebook that says if you write someone's name on it, but you actually don't want them to die, as long as you burn the page before the death is scheduled to happen, then that one name, not every name on that page, but that one name will be retracted, and they'll be safe.
But you can only do it once. Once you've burnt one page to do it over, then that's it. Yeah. So there's just one chance, and they do use that. I think the more I think about this, the less I like it as an idea, because I'm just like, no, don't dilute the intensity of the Death Note. It's like, once the whole once
the name's in, it's like that.
Once the name's in,
we go,
and that's
choices.
Chilling,
Yeah.
So I think having introduced that, they did use it, which is fine, but I still don't really like it as an idea. Also, they're sloppy with. I'm pretty sure at one point in the original, if you write someone's name in the notebook, they will die of a heart attack in 40 seconds unless you write
was a standard. You have to specify
details.
Yeah.
Which again, it's very powerful. I think at some point, Light has written other people's names in, as in such and such does this, and I feel like they did, like, for instance, the gambit that he introduces involving Mia involves him writing down her name and it's like she does a certain thing and that then kills her, whereas I'm like, no, once your name's in the Death Note, if the conditions you've written aren't fulfilled, the person dies of a heart attack. Brutality. So I think that was sloppy. There's a
conditional clause in a book that's meant to be
it's like, I mean, I think it's a cool idea, but I'm like, no, I think, and I noticed at the end when Light's explaining how he did it, he's very careful not to have included other people's names in it, and I think, I'm like, so I think you kind of realised that and then forgot it, and there's one major instant, and the biggest flaw, when Light kills someone and he doesn't have their full name.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, sorry, that's
all three
very
of us
bad.
were like, but
that
and
really
also in the anime, this person's name isn't their real name, but they've used that name
as a pseudonym.
But the fact is, even if that was the real name,
it was still
clearly
just
not.
so
it was a single name. Yeah, and it's like, that's not first and last.
That's really sloppy, and I think they should have worked to get around that. I mean, I can see in some ways they didn't want to introduce the concept of the Shinigami eyes, which is
a whole other fucking thing.
In exchange for half your lifespan, if you see a person's face, you can then see their name, the name that you need to use to kill them floating above their head.
Yeah.
This then introduces a whole other host of problems. I can see why you wouldn't want to bring that in there. Also, I thought the idea of how he was trying to get Elle's name was weak and
sloppy.
A bit of a palaver.
It was a bit like, so hold on, on the one hand it's like, yeah, sure, he was raised in this mega,
let's creepy orphanage,
the Quilch Whammy Institute for having a sad time, whereas like, yeah, but also at the same time, it's only 48 hours away.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I felt like that was it was a good probably half an hour of the film that didn't really actually benefit the
No.
plot too much.
No, I could see why emotionally for Elle it works out later, but I thought it was clumsy. I mean,
They could have
even
done it
if they'd
better.
managed to get... There's got to be spoilers.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, I guess we've done
Spoilers,
we've been around, we've been dancing around some stuff, and
Yeah.
we've talked about some things,
Yeah.
but so we're going to talk about the ending as well, because I think that's
Yeah.
worth talking
So
about.
if you
hard
don't
cut
want
here.
spoilers, stop.
Yeah.
So even if he'd got Watari's real name, which he could have
didn't.
done, I still think that was a bit of a blah sequence. It's just like, okay, I don't...
Now Watari is slowly walking through a weird, creepy mansion.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think also it's like, I'm just kind of like, wouldn't Elle have noticed that his mentor had been mind possessed? I mean, I know Elle is like, Watari's missing, but I just kind of feel like...
Well, I didn't get that, they had that whole thing where Elle figured out where Watari had gone. And, I was like, wouldn't you immediately think that's where Watari has gone?
Yeah.
Because it's
Which
like, what
again
does...
is sort of people being dumbed down a bit.
Yeah, it's like, what does Kira want? Kira wants me dead. What does he need to get me dead? He by that point, he deduced that it was name and face, because he knew...
And he showed, his face.
Yeah, and he was all like, fucking come at me,
Yes.
you don't know my name.
Yeah.
And so you would be like, okay, so he's going to have taken Watari to try and get my name. Where is my name? It's in my weird, creepy mansion, dungeon, orphanage.
Thing.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing, and wanting a
Oh,
spoiler.
we're past spoilers,
well,
let's
yeah.
continue.
How they killed Watari, it didn't really make much sense.
The guys shot
presumably,
him?
they
But-
wrote that in the note.
Well, no, they said
Oh
Dealer's
no,
choice.
Dealer's choice,
Dealer's
yeah, and
choice.
it's killed.
And it's
yeah.
but they're just, why would the police show up, say, are you Watari, are you Watari? He goes, yes, I am Watari. And then they just fucking shoot him.
Really, what they could have been more of in this was more heart attacks. There were
Yeah.
not
There
actually
wasn't
many
enough.
heart attacks.
There were like 3 heart attacks.
Yeah, and I think the point is that once Light decides that he wants to be a god, again, he in the original, he's like, no, heart attacks are good because they're clear. It's like, there's no way that this could just be a lot
There's
of
a
coincidental
consistent pattern.
accidents.
It's me,
So,
Kira.
yeah, clearly, as you said, Nick, some Final Destination shtick going
there
on.
was a lot
And
of...
I can see that was inspired, but that was quite fun, really. But
Yeah.
there could have been more heart attacks, and I think Watari should probably have died of a heart attack.
So,
Sorry, Watari.
in terms of...
I liked you, but
Zoe, in terms of performances, any people stand out to you that you specifically
by
enjoyed?
far, Ryuk.
Yeah? Willem
By
Dafoe.
far, William Dafoe. And, I thought it shows what a good actor is, because you didn't, obviously the face was sort of mainly computer generated, but even then...
They had mocapped him, he had the dots in that little
Even then,
post-credit
you didn't see his face very often.
which I liked actually.
Yeah.
I thought that kept the creepiness.
Yeah,
of it.
I mean, I actually, because I was thinking, I really want to see his face, and when they showed his face, I was somewhat disappointed. It was sort of like Sims, or like, Harry Potter DS game monster kind of quality to me.
I don't know if it was quite as bad as
wasn't
It was
that.
okay, but
It
it wasn't that scary.
Yeah,
so they did well to
you
keep
could
him out
see
of
it was
the-
a computer-generated image,
Yes.
quite obviously. I quite like that they clearly had him in the costume.
Yeah.
Because then, rather than just completely generating the whole thing, but it just shows, the power of like a voice.
Yeah.
And I really liked how they shot scenes with Ryuk where, Light would be doing something and the background's blurred, but you just see the eyes.
Yeah,
They did
and
a
that's
lot
not
with-
even, they worked
Yeah,
really
he's
well.
not even saying anything.
They did a lot of good stuff with depth of field of
Yeah.
making sure he's there, but just how to focus and
Yeah.
all the sort of oh, he's in the background.
Which is one of the things I really liked about the original Death Note. I was like, oh my god, what you mean this thing is just following him around all the time? That's
Hello.
so creepy. So I thought they caught that well. So
It was
yeah.
interesting they made Ryuk sort of less of a comedy character.
Yes,
Because
and more.
he's quite funny in the anime.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it was quite dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had clearly screwed over previous owners of
Yes.
the...
Well, he has that
Death
whole
Note.
bit when he's all 4 letters in my name. The furthest anyone's ever got random in that book is 2.
Although I also was like, yeah, but I don't think you can kill a Shinigami by writing their name in the Death Note. That
And
just
also-
doesn't feel real.
And also you note that there's...
They had actually
It-
written Ryuk's name in the notebook earlier, but then
In the
again,
margins.
the whole you just putting the name in doesn't necessarily kill the person, but
The rules are a bit
yeah. So you
soft.
liked Ryuk. What did you
Yeah.
think of the other?
We mentioned that we liked Elle.
Yeah, I thought Elle was really good, but I wasn't so keen on how he was written. But I feel like
the guy did a really
did
good-
and I really like that they made him black as well.
And
that
I
was
thought
tidy.
actually they had a nice balance between the original L's mannerisms, but this guy made the part his own. I thought.
I'd say this
yeah.
Elle was much warmer.
Yes,
I feel.
yeah.
You know, and I liked how they, you know, they still had the sweets and the sitting on the chair.
Yeah.
And like,
I'm
the
just
way
going
he
to suddenly
tucks,
appear
like,
and like...
you know, the way his arms sort of do
Yeah,
everything so
yeah.
awkwardly.
Yeah.
He'd clearly gone to the source material and thought,
Yeah,
okay.
he
But-
actually had done his research.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like the guy playing Light was good, but he could have done that performance without actually ever watching Death Note, I felt.
Well, I think we were saying that like Mir and Light are definitely the two that felt most moved away.
Yeah, very
Like,
much.
because whereas like you know Soshiro to James and L to L and Watari to Watari,
Yeah.
they're all different, slightly different versions, but of the same fundamental character.
Yes, yeah.
Light is very very different. So it was
so is-
Nat Taylor was the guy, wasn't it? Who was Light?
Yeah, it was, I did Google it. Partway
I was kind of surprised because
It can't be Nat.
Wolf.
Yeah, I was going to
Nat
say, it can't
Wolf.
be Taylor.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Lights. Yeah, Nat Wolf.
Yeah, Nat Wolf. I was actually sort of, by the end of it, I was like, you know what? You're all right.
Yeah.
Because I started off and I was a bit kind of, he's a teenager, he's angry at the world, he's doing homework for other people, he's like, gets beat up by this douchebag, but then he's like, got this pre-existing relationship kind of with Mia, but she's like a cheerleader, but she doesn't care. It was kind of, I felt like I'm not really sure where he's meant to fit.
Yeah.
But once the narrative kind of got underway, I felt like he had a lot more to do with the more sort of emotive sequences where he's all like, oh no, I might have to murder my dad.
I thought he was very good in the emotive sequences. I thought, obviously, you know, anime Light is quite dramatic, and there's all the, you know, the staples of anime. It's pretty exaggerated, and I thought this guy actually did that well. I was like, oh, it's got that kind of dramatic, slightly crazy quality,
Almost
of
like
anime.
melodrama-ish,
yeah,
kind of.
But it's not too over the top, and I think there was a nice sense of him being like, he's quite snarky and jaded at the world, but also actually it spirals out of control very quickly, and he gets caught up in it. I thought he struck a really nice balance on that, and I thought it was good. As I said, I think I would have liked to see him get a chance to maybe be a little more ruthless. I think that would have made him a more enjoyable character for me to watch. But I thought a big part of why he worked for me was that I thought the guy was really selling it, and I thought like he wasn't just playing it as like, I'm so tragic and wronged. It was like, no, there is actually quite a lot of darkness.
There's a lot of mixed up anger and stuff inside
so I
of
thought
him.
that was good, and I mean I agree. I really liked Light's dad actually. I thought he was a really nice guy, and I felt really bad for him.
And I liked that they gave him, you know, which they don't do in the anime, the sort of the win of him saying it was you all along. And that, you know, that he actually, because in the anime he dies not knowing, doesn't he?
Yeah, he dies thinking that like
he's
couldn't be
innocent.
Kira.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, and I actually thought it was a really nice father-son moment. It makes me think of like, you know, when you're like a teenager and your parents are like, okay, you know, what have you done? And you sit down and you're like, okay, Dad, I really fucked up. Yeah. You know, I thought it was really nice, and it was interesting sort of like, you know, it gave it that element of realism.
And I thought like actually Light's mother having died gave obviously her, like, you know, strengthened the connection between them, and also it, you know, like calls out his father on like not, you know, how can you not want to murder all of the criminals?
Well,
in
not
the
even
world?
that. Like, it starts off obviously from the thing like, you know who killed your wife.
Yeah.
And you're a cop.
Yeah.
And you know he did it
Can't
because
you
you
just
saw
plug
it.
cocaine in his car?
Yeah.
Though?
Why not be a little bit corrupt?
He
Why
may
not?
not have actually said that.
You know,
Okay.
and like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, and I thought that the relationship between them was done really well, and actually kind of has impacted more in my mind than the relationship between Light and Soshiro in the anime and the manga. I mean, obviously there's a lot more going on in the anime and the manga, and there are a lot of other relationships
There's just
in it.
more space for it to happen.
And I think in this one, like Light's dad here is he's slightly less conservative and slightly less scarily driven than Soshiro is. No one drives a truck through a building. So I think but the fact that also pretty early on, also, he's the only one who's kind of sticking with the case, and he's getting stick for
And
it.
I
really liked that. It kind of...
And there was no task force.
Yeah, and I think that works really well, actually, because, you're trying to slim it down, so you don't want the task force as characters, but that meant they transferred a lot of the stuff that I like about the task force to Light's dad, and that was really great. So I thought that they really did that well. And
If I may move us to possibly the final topic, and then we'll go to final thoughts. The ending.
Yes.
Now, for the ending, it kind of ends on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
Which I actually, because it ended with a twofold thing that I thought was really good. One, you have the big aha moment where Light explains
how I did it,
how everything came together in exactly the way.
And that's what I want from a Death Note
confesses
adaptation.
to his dad.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have that great, like you said, great moment between Light and his dad of like sort of having a thing. You also have Elle finding essentially proof and sort of theorizing and coming to the conclusion he thinks he knows how it works and taking up a pen potentially to kill Light.
And he's got a page of the death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're just like, oh, and then and you have Ryuk laughing and saying, obviously, the iconic line that humans are so interesting. How did you guys find that? Because I thought that was a really strong end, and I like that it didn't definitively go one way or the other because the dynamic between Light and Elle had been so different.
Yes.
Very different.
I think it made sense that neither of them really win.
Yes.
Because Light survived, retained the book, but lost his girlfriend. Was revealed to both his father and conclusively to Elle that he did it.
Yeah.
Elle loses Watari, loses his position of authority in the Seattle police force.
Yes, because Light has also set it up that he's given himself an alibi for not being Kira, so Elle has been discredited, which, yes, that was really good, actually. Yeah, that's
He was like, don't take off, private jet, I've just had an idea. But yeah, I think it really kind of, I think if they'd ended it with like a conclusive win one way or the other, I think the movie would have been... I was assuming
that was what they would do.
Yeah, I would have thought it would have been weaker though.
Yes, yeah.
Because there was a lot more ambiguity in
and this was, well, for one thing, this was more surprising, because I was expecting Elle to win, even if bittersweetly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good, and I agree, it was a nice way to round off the Elle and Light dynamic. It was a very interesting way to round it off. And yeah, I think I kind of, it finishes and I'm like, wow, that's really strong. I feel really good about that now. Yeah, I think I was going to say something else, but I cannot get what it was. So Zoe, continue.
I was going to say, I thought it was interesting, like, sort of when he's confessing to his dad, there's still, his dad is sitting and listening, and there is that element of, okay, this is bad, but it might be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of...
And then you've got that unknown, they don't know that, like...
It's kind of a cliffhanger for both for Elle and for Light's dad as to what they're going to do now.
Yeah.
And that's quite nice, actually, because of what how their characters, I think, have achieved more or different prominence in this adaptation.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting.
So if I may move you through, because we're getting up to time. Final thoughts. Similar to the beginning, we have a one-line final thought to sum up the processing that we've gone through and to sum up your thoughts on the movie. It can be serious, it can be silly, whatever you want. Let's begin with Maddy.
Okay. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the aesthetic of it. I thought the cast was really strong.
The score was good too.
The score was good, although sometimes a little intrusive in places. I thought the plotting could have been better. They should have been more careful about the rules. And actually, I do think that while I liked what they did with Mia's character, it does kind of mean that she's basically the only woman and she's so evil! Which, thinking about it, I'm kind of like, oh, so it was all Mia's fault and she is the worst. Which, again, so that's another reason why I would have liked to see a more ruthless Light. But I'm glad it was made. I'm glad I watched it. I don't think it's necessarily amazing, but I kind of really liked it anyway.
Zoe?
Yeah, similar to Maddy. I think I'd say if you're into Death Note, it is worth a watch. I think what I would say is the minute I stopped relating it to the Death Note we know and love was the minute I started enjoying it. It's, a warning, it is very sort of Netflix. and very sort of teenage angsty kind of, you know.
Which
and,
I like, but
yeah.
you may not.
Fair amount
You know,
of
but
tits and blood.
It's quite different
And
to me,
light,
you know.
pretty.
It is a bit gory, so if you're not keen on that, then, you know, heads up. My only criticism as well, which I hadn't thought of, is I wish we had a bit more about Mia's backstory.
Yes.
And why she went so psycho.
Well, we also, there was
Yeah.
literally a moment where you were like, does Mia even have parents?
Yeah.
Like, we know nothing about this character.
Yeah, and obviously in the anime it's so important that her parents were
Yeah.
killed, and that's what drives her. But yeah, I'd say it's worth a watch, but think of it as a separate entity to the anime.
Excellent. For my one-line finish, I think I have to say what everybody in the room is thinking, which is, where the hell was my dramatic potato chip scene?
Yeah.